Sometimes life feels heavy, like no matter how hard you try, things just don't move. You chase your goals, push yourself, and still end up exhausted, wondering if the universe is even listening. You question your timing, your choices, your worth. It's frustrating. It's lonely. But what if the silence wasn't the universe ignoring you, but preparing something bigger than you imagined? What if your efforts are not being wasted, but woven into a bigger plan that you just can't see yet? This isn't about blind faith. This is about learning to relax into something real, a deep trust that the universe is already at work for you. Right now, while you're overthinking, it's already moving pieces into place. That missed opportunity, it was a redirection. That delay, a divine pause. You're not behind. You're right where you need to be. In this video, you'll discover why surrendering control isn't weakness, it's power. You'll learn how to stop forcing outcomes and start allowing blessing. Because the moment you stop resisting, you'll finally see what's always been true. The universe is not your obstacle, it's your silent partner. Stay with me. This shift could change everything. Timing often feels like the most painful mystery. Things we want so deeply can seem just out of reach, no matter how much we try to speed them up. We set deadlines in our minds. We plan our lives down to the detail. But nothing seems to arrive when we think it should. The job doesn't come. The relationship doesn't heal. The opportunity passes. And in that space between desire and arrival, doubt creeps in. Maybe it's not meant for me. Maybe I missed my chance. But that's not the truth. What feels like a delay is often divine alignment. The universe doesn't follow the clock on the wall. It follows energy, purpose, and growth. Things show up when the soul is ready, not when the mind is impatient. When doors stay closed, it's rarely rejection. It's redirection, a subtle protection. Timing isn't about punishment. It's about preparation. Something is being shaped behind the curtain. Something that needs more time. Sometimes that something is you. Growth takes place in the waiting. Strength builds in the silence. Patience is not sitting still. It's staying grounded in faith, while everything unseen begins to move. Even when nothing looks different on the outside, there are shifts happening within. Energy rearranges. People cross paths. Resources align. The universe doesn't rush. It's not slow. It's precise. Seeds don't bloom overnight. Neither do dreams. When planted, they don't scream for attention. They grow quietly, in darkness, unseen, until the moment is right. Then, all at once, it looks like everything happens fast. But it never really does. It happens in layers, in timing, in trust. So much of the pain in waiting comes from believing nothing's happening. But something always is. The delay is never wasted. It's full of answers, still forming, connections still unfolding. You don't need to force things to unfold faster. You only need to stay open. Keep showing up. Keep trusting. The timeline may be different than expected, but the destination is still intact. The moment it all aligns, it will feel effortless. Not because it was easy, but because it was always meant for you. Holding on too tightly often comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear that things won't happen unless they're constantly pushed and planned. That kind of pressure builds a life around control, needing everything to look a certain way, needing every step to go exactly as expected. But control is heavy. It squeezes the joy out of the present moment and turns every goal into a burden. The more control is forced, the more resistance is created. Energy gets blocked. Opportunities feel harder to reach. It starts to feel like everything is a fight, even peace. Control is often mistaken for strength, but it's actually a form of fear in disguise. It says, if I'm not holding it together, it'll all fall apart. But some things are meant to fall apart. Some paths close because better ones are waiting. Surrender isn't giving up, it's making space. It's choosing flow over force. When the need to control is released, something powerful happens. Clarity returns, calm takes its place, life stops being a checklist and starts becoming a rhythm. Things begin to move naturally. The right people come in, the right opportunities show up, not because they were hunted down, but because space was made for them to arrive. Flow isn't passive, it still requires action, just not anxious action. It means moving from a place of trust, not fear. It means doing what feels aligned, then releasing the outcome. That space between doing and receiving is where magic lives. Control tries to predict and perfect. Flow simply allows. It responds to what's real, not what's feared. In flow, the present moment becomes enough. It becomes the foundation, not the obstacle. There's no need to chase what's already on its way. Nothing good ever needed to be forced into being. What's meant to be part of the journey will find its way once the tight grip of control is released. When the need to micromanage life softens, peace grows, energy rises, manifestation becomes less about force and more about trust. Control is exhausting, flow is freedom, and once that freedom is tasted, there's no going back. Everything in the universe is energy. Every thought, every feeling, every action carries a frequency. Some feel heavy, fear, anger, doubt. Others feel light, joy, peace, gratitude. That frequency affects what's drawn in and what's pushed away. Energy doesn't lie. It speaks louder than words. When the inner world is filled with fear or frustration, that's the signal being sent out. And the universe responds not to words, but to energy. It's not about pretending to be happy or forcing positivity. It's about choosing to shift into a lighter space. One thought, one breath, one feeling at a time. Raising vibration doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means holding space for it without letting it take over. It means finding moments of beauty in the chaos, smiling even when things feel uncertain, trusting even when clarity hasn't fully arrived. That shift in vibration isn't fake, it's powerful. Gratitude, even in small amounts, raises energy. Presence, even for a few seconds, creates calm. Joy, even quiet joy, changes everything. These aren't just moods, they're frequencies, and they attract more of what matches them. When energy is high, things begin to align, paths open, people feel drawn in. The world begins to respond differently, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because the inner state has changed. That inner shift creates outer shifts. It's not about ignoring reality, it's about creating a new one through thought, feeling, and intention. A raised vibration doesn't push harder, it allows more. It turns resistance into flow. It makes space for peace to lead the way. Choosing higher thoughts isn't always easy, especially in hard moments, but even a small shift can open the door. A single deep breath, a word of kindness, a moment of stillness. These things carry weight. They raise the frequency. They send a new signal out into the world. One of trust, one of peace, one of alignment. The universe doesn't need perfection. It meets the energy that's offered. When that energy is lifted, life begins to respond in new ways. What once felt stuck begins to move. What once felt far begins to arrive. High energy invites high outcomes, and the shift begins from within. Alignment doesn't require grand gesture. It's found in the quiet, consistent moments that often go unnoticed. A few minutes of stillness in the morning, a slow, intentional breath before starting the day, a moment of reflection before sleep. These simple acts create powerful shifts in energy. They bring awareness back to the present, where the universe speaks the loudest. In that space, noise fades, doubt softens, inner clarity begins to rise. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to return to that space, not to empty the mind, but to become aware of it, to watch thoughts come and go without needing to chase them. In that stillness, guidance often appears without force. Ideas unfold naturally. Peace replaces tension. Gratitude journaling adds another layer of alignment. It shifts focus from what's missing to what's already here. Even the smallest moments, a kind word, a warm meal, a peaceful walk, carry weight. Writing them down creates a pattern of noticing, and what's noticed begins to expand. Energy flows toward appreciation. Life starts to feel fuller, even if nothing outside has changed yet. That vibration of thankfulness sends a signal that more is welcome, more joy, more peace, more connection, and the universe responds in kind. Mindful breathing is often overlooked, but holds incredible power. One deep breath can reset the nervous system. One conscious inhale and exhale can move energy from chaos to calm. Breathing with awareness brings the body and mind back into harmony. It opens space where tension once lived. When practiced throughout the day, this simple act becomes a grounding force. It reminds the body it's safe. It reminds the heart it's supported. Small moments like these aren't just rituals. They're signals. They tell the universe, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm open. These daily practices don't need to be long or complicated. Consistency is what creates impact. A few minutes of presence can realign an entire day. These moments become anchors. They reconnect to flow, to clarity, to source. They shift energy back to where it belongs, inward. That's where alignment begins, not through control or effort, but through quiet trust, through small choices that build a powerful rhythm, one that moves in harmony with the universe, instead of against it. Messages from the universe are rarely loud. They're subtle, quiet, often disguised as coincidence. A song that plays with words that echo what's on the mind, a number that keeps showing up again and again, a stranger's sentence that feels like it was meant only to be heard in that exact moment. These are not accidents. These are nudges, soft reminders that something greater is listening, guiding, aligning. Synchronicities appear when energy is in motion, when attention is gently tuned to the present. What feels random on the surface often carries meaning just beneath it. These signs don't need to be dramatic to be real. They show up in the repetition, the patterns, the feelings that can't be explained, but can't be ignored. A sudden sense of peace, a moment of clarity after confusion, a shift in mood that arrives out of nowhere. These are all forms of guidance. They come not through logic but through resonance. Something in the heart recognizes them before the mind does. That quiet knowing that says, this matters. Staying open to these messages requires a kind of stillness, not stillness of action, but stillness of awareness, a willingness to pause and notice what's around, to pay attention, not just to what's happening, but how it feels. Signs are not always answers. Sometimes they're confirmations, a signal to keep going, a whisper that says the energy is aligned, the path is clear, the timing is near. Doubt may try to explain them away, but deep inside there's always a knowing. Receiving signs becomes easier when resistance fades, when trust replaces control, when curiosity replaces pressure. The more attention is given to these small alignments, the more they appear. The universe responds to presence. It mirrors belief. It speaks through the language of alignment. Each sign is a reminder that no one is walking alone. Guidance is always near, not because it's being chased, but because it's already here. Staying open is the key. The signs don't come when demanded. They come when space is made to receive them. In that openness, communication begins. In that presence, connection deepens. What once felt like coincidence begins to feel like a conversation, and every moment becomes a message. Pain often arrives before progress. Right at the moment, things feel like they're falling apart. Something deeper is being built. It doesn't look like growth at first. It looks like confusion, frustration, fear. The path that felt so clear suddenly disappears. Plans unravel, goals feel distant, and in that darkness, doubt begins to speak louder than hope. But this is where transformation begins. Not in comfort, but in pressure. Growth doesn't happen on the smooth road. It happens in the cracks, in the pause, in the storms that feel like they're breaking everything, when in truth, they're breaking everything that no longer fits. Obstacles are not punishments, they're pivots. The universe rarely removes something without offering something better. But that gap between what's lost
and what's coming can feel unbearable. That space tests patience. It strips away what isn't needed. It exposes what's real, not to hurt, but to reveal. Pain clears the path for alignment. Resistance gets burned away so truth can rise. The version of life once clung to begins to dissolve, making space for something deeper, more honest. What feels like chaos often carries clarity inside it, waiting to be uncovered. Trusting the process means holding steady when the outcome can't be seen. It means staying rooted even when everything around is shifting, not because it's easy, but because something sacred is being formed in the fire. The universe doesn't waste pain. Every setback carries a message. Every closed door points towards something more aligned. Growth isn't always about more. Sometimes it's about less. Less control, less noise, less pretending, and in that reduction, the true self begins to emerge. Challenges shape character. They reveal strength. They sharpen intuition. The deepest breakthroughs come after the longest waits. The most beautiful awakenings often follow the hardest falls. None of it is random. Every detour leads somewhere. Every delay carries a lesson. And even in the struggle, something higher is always working. Not everything will make sense in the moment, but with time, the pieces always fit. The pain that once felt unbearable becomes the bridge to something better. Growth disguised as loss, redirection dressed as failure, and through it all, the universe keeps whispering, keep going. Something is coming. Scarcity is loud. It speaks in thoughts that say there's not enough time, not enough love, not enough success to go around. It compares, it competes, it clings. This mindset creates a world that feels small and heavy. Every step becomes a struggle. Every win feels temporary. But abundance speaks a different language. It says there's more than enough space, opportunity, joy. It doesn't rush. It doesn't fear someone else's light. It expands. It trusts. And that energy changes everything. An abundance mindset doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect. It means choosing to focus on what is present instead of obsessing over what's missing. Energy flows where attention goes. Focusing on lack draws more of it in. It lowers vibration, tightens the heart, and closes off possibilities. Shifting toward abundance opens space. It invites more of what's wanted, not through force, but through alignment. Gratitude becomes the first step. Noticing even the smallest blessings begins to shift the lens. A warm conversation, a meal on the table, a moment of peace. Each one becomes proof that more is already here. Speaking abundance into existence creates momentum. Words carry energy. Thoughts shape perception. Saying there's always more on the way begins to create that reality. Saying I trust what's meant for me will stay makes room for peace to enter. This shift doesn't need big changes to start. It begins in the inner world, choosing to see possibility where others see limits, finding the lesson inside a challenge, noticing how often support shows up, even in quiet ways. The universe responds to openness. It doesn't need perfection. It needs willingness. When life is viewed through lack, fear takes over. When life is viewed through abundance, creativity awakens. New paths are seen. Doors once overlooked start to feel possible. The same situation, seen through different energy, creates an entirely different experience. Every day offers a choice to see through fear or to see through faith. That choice becomes a habit. That habit becomes a mindset. And that mindset attracts more of what matches it. Abundance isn't about having everything. It's about knowing there's enough, even before more arrives. That knowing changes how life unfolds. It changes what's welcomed in. And it starts with perspective. So much of life is spent chasing a future that hasn't arrived, waiting for the big moment, the breakthrough, the goal that will finally make it all feel worth it. But while the mind races ahead, the present quietly slips away. The small, quiet moments that hold the most beauty go unnoticed. Laughter shared over something simple, the calm between two busy hours, the breath that came just when it was needed. These are not distractions from the path, they are the path. Joy doesn't live in the destination, it lives in how the journey is walked, the way a day begins, the thoughts carried throughout it, the energy brought to each moment. even the hard ones. That's where peace is found, not when everything is perfect, but when presence takes root. Holding on to the future too tightly creates pressure. It keeps the mind stuck in the idea that happiness is always later, but life is happening now, right now, in this breath, in this thought, in this step. Chasing the next thing, without stopping to feel the current one, leads to burnout. It creates a cycle where nothing ever feels enough. But something shifts when the journey becomes the focus, when joy is found in progress, not just results, when growth is seen in small wins, not just big endings. Each step forward carries its own lesson, each pause holds wisdom, even detours shape the soul in ways no plan ever could. There's a quiet magic in choosing to enjoy the becoming, to not wait for the final chapter to feel fulfilled. The dream may still be forming, but the life around it is already unfolding, and it's worth noticing, worth celebrating, even in its messiness, even when it's unclear. When the journey is embraced, every moment gains meaning, success feels softer, the heart opens wider, time begins to expand. Joy isn't found by rushing through life, it's found by sinking into it, fully, gently, with presence. The journey is not a means to an end, it's the masterpiece itself, and every single day is part of it. Everything begins to change when energy shifts from force to trust, when each moment is no longer something to conquer, but something to receive. Life isn't a race to some distant goal, it's a slow unfolding, a quiet dance with timing, energy and intention. There's no need to rush, what's meant will find its way, what's aligned will always stay. Peace begins when the present becomes enough, even while the future is still being shaped. Every breath is a chance to reconnect, every thought is a choice to return to trust. No moment is wasted, no step is too small. Even now the universe is moving things into place, not always in ways that can be seen, but always in ways that are felt. That soft pull toward calm, that nudge toward patience, that deep knowing that something greater is at work. The more space that's made to receive, the more clearly it all begins to unfold. Even when things feel uncertain, the path is still working, still opening, still guiding. Sometimes the biggest shifts happen quietly, with no warning, not through struggle but through surrender. The universe doesn't need to be pushed, it simply needs to be trusted. In stillness, in gratitude, in alignment, everything begins to move. If these words spoke to something deep within, take a moment to breathe and receive that energy. Let it settle, let it stay. If this message helped, share it with someone who needs the reminder. And if you'd like to stay connected to this kind of energy, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. This space was created for those on the journey, for those who know there's more than meets the eye, more peace, more trust, more light, and it's already on the way.